Chris Paul, one of the most controversial greats in NBA history, especially the past decade, not only has the 34-year-old point guard resurrected himself, but still proven he's an elite player in his 15th season. As we seen in the 2020 All-Star game, not only did CP3 put on an absolute show, shocking us all by catching his first ever alley-oop dunk, an iconic moment in his career. Looking at his body of work and dedication to his craft, CP3 will never get mentioned amongst the best of the best since he still doesn't have a championship, something he continues to get criticized for. How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. Today, we're gonna look at the career of Chris Paul and his greatness and why he's arguably one of the most underappreciated and unlucky players in NBA history. Let's start with this season. CP3's playing excellent basketball, his most efficient shooting year since 2015. Up until the All-Star break, Paul missed only one game. Already almost played as many games as his last 3 regular seasons, missed 24, 24, and 21 games. Looked as healthy as ever in a long time, putting up over 17 points, 5 rebounds, almost 7 assists in under 32 minutes at the latter stages of his career with 2 years remaining in his contract after 2020. The 6-foot point guard constantly gets bashed for signing such a risky deal. Now in his 4th different team, many didn't think he'd play a single minute with the Thunder before the season started, but being the proven leader on his team that he's supposed to be on a rebuilding roster, currently 33 and 22 overall, a game and a half behind the Rockets where he was traded for Russell Westbrook, being on a playoff caliber team as the best player on the West for a 34-year-old, insanely impressive. With many questions coming into the season, it would have been super unlikely for Paul to make another All-Star team given the loaded talent in the West. Plus, the last time he previously made it, 2016, his second to last season with the Clippers at 30 years old, derailed by injuries, his thirst and competitive spirits up there with some of the best. The main reason why Team LeBron won the All-Star game, Paul had 23.6 assists, a plus 13 plus minus, highest in the game. Coach Vogel had Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook, and Luka Doncic on the bench in crunch time, proving he's one of the most composed 4 generals aside from Magic Johnson and Jason Kidd. Paul was absolutely legendary, made a genius decision, pitching the idea of the new All-Star format, proved himself as an alpha dog, where his fierce motor gets rubbed the wrong way, being extremely demanding to his past teammates, some of whom went public criticizing Paul. The fact of the reality is, there's always going to be teammates who don't get along as much. A lot of his opponents also couldn't stand him and often gotten into it with several altercations, shoving, even punches being thrown at him. His time with the Clippers ended in disappointment, untimely injuries in the playoffs. If not him, it was All-Star teammate Blake Griffin who went down. Because he never got to the finals or won an MVP award, it's easy to criticize Paul and overlook him amongst the best players of his generation, with many young NBA fans viewing him as a failed Clipper who's been overshadowed in his position by Steph Curry, who had way more help on his teams. And since he's not flashy, not an elite scorer, a guy who averaged over 20 points a game twice, and likely not on verge in winning a championship anytime soon, CP3 might sadly fall into the category of Elgin Baylor, John Stockton, and George Gervin, greats who don't get mentioned as much but not forgotten, but won't be mentioned amongst the best of the best. In the 2010s decade, the first 3 players that comes to mind, LeBron, Steph, and KD, followed by the Hardens, the Kawhis, and even the Westbrooks of the world gets mentioned ahead of CP3. Looking at his past playoff performances, there is no indication that he underperformed in the biggest stages in the losses because his teammates failed to play at a high level. Somehow, CP3 gets a lot of the blame. Elimination Game 6 had 27 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 58% shooting. The 2-time defending champs just outplayed the Rockets, with reports that heated tensions in the locker room occurred after the loss. Whether it's true or not, it wasn't shocking Paul was traded to OKC, where he sacrificed a lot of his game, played off the ball a lot in Houston, so Harden can continue his ISO style, scoring all his points, and needed to when Paul missed many games early in the season. Even when CP3 returned, Harden wouldn't take a step back from his ISO game. In the 2018 playoffs, Paul pulled an untimely hamstring with a minute left in Game 5, carried Houston with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, putting his team up 3-2, played amazing in Game 4. The many what-ifs, whether Houston would have won Game 7 with Paul, we'll never know. Perhaps his only real shot at ever winning a title in one of his most underrated series. He was the best player in the 5 games against Utah, dropped the career playoff best 41 points, 7 rebounds, 10 assists on 59% shooting in the closeout game, making his first conference finals, took over down the stretch, with Harden going 7 of 22, dropped 20 in the fourth quarter, one of the most forgotten recent amazing performances. Looking back at the 2018 playoffs, Paul was the more efficient Rocket over Harden. In the 2017 playoffs, teammate Blake Griffin only played 3 games, suffered a toe injury, shorthanded against Utah, losing in 7. Paul still managed to average over 25 a game, 5 rebounds, 10 assists on 50% shooting. In 2016, Paul broke his hand in Game 4 against Portland. Griffin aggravated his left quad the same game. Paul played great, averaged 24, 4 and 7, 2.5 steals on 49% shooting. 2015, Paul's memorable playoff moment, hitting the go-ahead game-winning banker in Game 7, eliminating the defending champion Spurs in the first round, finished with 27 points on 69% shooting, put up nearly 23, 5 rebounds, 8 assists on 51% shooting for the series while dealing with a pulled hamstring. But that season, his team will sadly be remembered for blowing a 3-1 lead to Houston in the semis, a 19-point lead in Game 6. Many will blame Paul for that loss, but it wasn't his fault. He did finish with 31, 7 and 11. Teammates JJ Redick, Matt Barnes, Jamal Crawford, and Austin Rivers shot a combined 14 of 46 that game, and Josh Smith of all people hit 4 threes. Went bananas in the fourth. His team was exhausted by Game 7, but Paul finished with 26 points, 10 assists, 4 steals. Sadly, he gets most of the blame. The season before, his team won 57 games, willed his team to victory in the first round over the up-and-coming Warriors, had 22 points, 14 assists, 4 steals on 53% shooting in Game 7, competed with the 59-win Thunder, averaged 22.5 points, 12 assists, 2.5 steals on 51% shooting in the 6 games, had 25, 7 and 11 in Game 6, which they lost. Game 5 was one of his worst moments, blowing a 7-point lead in the final minute, had a costly turnover, but the refs were even worse. A no call on Reggie Jackson where the ball was clearly out on him, OKC ball. Paul fouled Westbrook on a 3, barely made any contact with him, and lost the ball in the final possession, was hit, no call. His mistakes and turnovers cost his team the game. Only time he should be fully blamed for his team losing, where many other superstars in the past had their bad playoff moments, but since many of them won titles, those bad moments will always be overshadowed. In 2013, first round against Memphis, Griffin hurt his ankle in Game 5, didn't return after the third. The Clippers ended up losing in Games 5 and 6. Paul had 35 points, followed by 28 and 8 on 69% shooting in Game 6. His teammates once again didn't show up. Against a 56-win Memphis team that made the conference finals that year, that's how tough the West is. His team was swept by San Antonio in 2012 after he and Blake were limited by injuries suffered in Game 5 in the series before Paul's arrival to Los Angeles. The franchise was an absolute joke. The previous 5 seasons, the Clippers didn't even make the playoffs. Even with rookie Blake Griffin in 2011, they were still bad. Paul changed that whole franchise around, winning between 51 to 57 games his tenure there. Besides the 2012 lockout year, CP3 found immediate success, traded from New Orleans, finished 3rd in MVP in 2012, 4th in 2013, overshadowed by prime LeBron and young KD. During his time with New Orleans, a dysfunctional franchise, the season after Paul left, they landed #1 pick Anthony Davis, who's no longer with the team. Looking at the years Paul's played, he only played 45 games with a torn meniscus in 2010, had to get surgery. His biggest regret was not taking rehab serious enough. As a 24-year-old, many guys would have never been the same after. Paul could have been left with plenty of what-ifs, had to change his game a little bit after. Before his arrival, New Orleans won a pathetic 18 games, tied for the second worst record, a 20-game turnaround his rookie season, was already the best player and leader on his team, won Rookie of the Year, had one of the best seasons for any 22-year-old in 2008, led the franchise to a record best 56 wins, averaged 21 points, 4 rebounds, 11.5 assists, almost 3 steals on 49% shooting, finished 2nd in MVP behind Kobe Bryant, his closest to ever sniffing the award, dominated Dirk Nowitzki's Mavs in 5 in the first round, having one of the most impressive playoff debuts all time, lost to the defending champion Spurs in 7 in the semis. After tasting some early success, the franchise failed him in every way imaginable, just like how they failed Anthony Davis, not surrounding the right pieces. Paul dragged his team to the 7th seed in 2011, even took Kobe's Lakers, the 2-time defending champs, to 6 games. Paul was of course sensational, averaged 22 points, almost 7 rebounds, 11.5 assists on almost 55% shooting. From being drafted to a terrible franchise set up for failure in New Orleans, to former Commissioner David Stern vetoing his trade to the Lakers in summer 2011, to injuries and setbacks between him and Blake Griffin, through all the disappointments, his His career numbers of 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 9.5 assists on 47, 37, 87 shooting splits, a PER of over 25, currently 7th in assists all time, 7th in steals all time, a 10-time All-Star and counting, arguably should have had more All-Star appearances, 4-time assist champ, 6-time steals champ, 8-time All-NBA, 4 first teams, 9 defensive teams, 7 first teams, a top 5 MVP candidate 4 times, the 2013 All-Star Game MVP. His greatness speaks for itself. As perfect a floor general as we ever seen, combined with his elite passing, arguably top 5 all-time, ball handling, taking care of the ball, shooting, a lead from mid-range, and a solid rebounder for his size. On top of that, Paul never averaged more than 3 turnovers in any season, has the best assist to turnover ratio of every elite point guard in NBA history. His best stretch from 08 to 2018, one of the best for any point guards, excluding championships, 19 points, 4.5 rebounds, 10 assists on 48% shooting, combined with the playmaking, defense, with the efficiency and insane longevity, doesn't get mentioned enough. His postseason numbers of 21 points, 5 rebounds, 8.5 assists, over 2 steals on 48% shooting, just as impressive. Even helped the Rockets go from a 55-win team to a 65-win team, taking one of the all-time best teams against the ropes before his injury. Paul was also already a top 5 player in the league by his 3rd season up until 2015 when healthy. Unfortunately, he will never be viewed as a top 20 player all time if he never wins a championship, but up there with the Jason Kidds, the Steve Nash, and the John Stocktons of the world. Analytically, he's up there with the best of the best, ranked 9 in PER all time, 8 in value over replacement, 4 in win shares per 48 minutes, 1st in offensive rating due to his consistency, dominating the ball, avoiding turnovers, and making the right plays for his teammates. CP3 made the postseason every year since 2011 and counting, and making the best of his situation on an OKC team that has no business being in the playoff picture this season. It just goes to show his work ethic and will to win on the court, doing all the right things. Many people take his greatness for granted. Being one of the most hated players over the last decade, a dog on the court, doesn't back down from bigger guys. Fans might not fully respect CP3, but the great Kobe Bryant called him one of the greatest competitors all time. The two were always locked in every time they played the All-Star games together with the same attitude. Just imagine if they played together with the Lakers. It's a shame that people overlook Paul's consistency and accomplishments, hates him for his antics, and that he has no rings. NBA players being 6 foot, 175 pounds aren't supposed to be this good for this long. Earning every bit of his $40 million this season, CP3 simply makes all his teammates better, whether it was David West, Tyson Chandler with New Orleans, Blake and DJ with the Clippers. If it wasn't for CP3, no way would DeAndre Jordan have made 3 All-NBA teams and become an All-Star. After Steph Curry's emergence, other great point guards and Kyrie Irving, who won the 2016 title, and Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook getting his triple-doubles, all began to flourish, leaving Paul as an afterthought all of a sudden. Sure, he's not as effective off the ball and has some liabilities when he's not running the offense, watching James Harden ISO style most of 2019, but on an OKC team with 3 other guys putting up over 19 a game, Paul's the engine to the offense in a position where he continues to flourish, proving many doubters wrong. And because he's not the type of guy to go out and score 45 points on consecutive nights in big games like a Kevin Durant, LeBron James, or Steph Curry, people aren't as attractive to that. Just like other greats in Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett, those guys don't have many monster games where they drop 40 on consecutive nights, but are reliable and consistent, giving similar production night in and night out for over a decade straight. Same with CP3, who's always been a pass-first player. As a traditional point guard, he had no chance winning in New Orleans. LA didn't surround him with an elite perimeter scorer, and he could very well have won the title in 2018 if it wasn't for his untimely injury. With CP3 at the latter stages of his career, it's very important to appreciate his greatness, his hard work, and impact to the game of basketball. Nowadays, with the point guard position changing and a lot of them being score-first guys, Chris Paul as the point guard deserves more credit to his body of work, being elite on both sides of the floor. At his size, a true testament to his greatness. Thank you so much for watching this video. Where do you guys rank Chris Paul amongst the all-time greats? Let me know in the comments below. More good stuff coming soon. See you next time.